Imagine a place where one race is allowed and other races are not. Is that racism? Or is it simply empowerment? Well, this is the case in some part of South Africa. Also, transgenderism is officially classified as a mental illness in this particular country. Is this fair, or is it simply bigotry? And a man gets misgendered at a bank. All of that and more today on RealityCheckSA. If you are a South African who has been living under the rocks and do not know the place of Orania, well, I'll give you guys a brief summary. Orania is a place where there's only white people allowed. No other races, no black people, nothing. So take a look at this video and come back so we can discuss.
If you want to live in Orania, you have to meet certain requirements. The first and most important is you have to be a white Afrikaner. Afrikaners are descendants of Dutch settlers who played a key role in establishing and enforcing apartheid. You also need to be a Calvinist Christian, have a clean criminal record, and speak Afrikaans only within the enclave. Orania is a relatively small community of about 3,000 people, but they have big ambitions and are growing fast. They have their own local government, currency, flag, college, farms, a bank, and their own rules. What drives people to live in such a secluded and controversial place?
We use our own workforce, and it's a culture thing. I say, nay, I come from Natal, and I know Natal very well. And if you go to Keatsdrift in Natal, or to Gala Ferry, it's black. There's no whites there. So they make it a big deal, but most popular places in Natal all over, it's black. And it's not about white and black. It's definitely not. I speak the lingo and I enjoy it. To be unified in I won't say whites, but in a cultural effect. That's it.
And what are your favorite things about Orania?
Have you ever seen a 16 or 17-year-old girl walk around 9 o'clock at night? Anywhere in South Africa?
It's not common.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have burglar guards, and if they leave a bike somewhere, tomorrow morning it's still there.
Well, thank you so much for speaking. I really appreciate it.
I mean, what could drive people to live in such a secluded area? Racism. What else? I mean, what could drive people to ostracize themselves from another race or other races in a continent? I would argue, not even a continent, in South Africa. I think it's racism. I know it's important to consider both sides. I think their culture can also be preserved without these extreme measures, because this is an extreme measure, I would argue. Of course, my main contention with this is that it keeps feeding into the vicious cycle of racism, whether they mean to or not. As I was preparing this video, my little sister asked me what Orania was, because she heard me say it so many times as I was doing this video. And it made me wonder. Imagine if you reside in Orania and a child asks a very simple question. Are we racist? Why aren't black people allowed? I'm scrolling through social media and I see other races. Why are there no other races where I live? And this is your child asking you this. How would you answer this question without coming across as racist? It's an honest question. And say the kids grow older and they decide to move out of Orania. Are the kids that are born and bred in Orania not going to have problems with racism? I think they would. Because if I was born and bred and raised in a town that says white people only, no blacks allowed, only white people are allowed, I'm automatically going to assume narcissism and think I'm better than other races. And I'm making a generalization here because I understand human nature. Our environments have an effect on us, whether we like it or not. This is why people say you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most. Now, imagine a whole town that endorses and conspicuously says, why only whites are allowed. And even if you think your environment does not have any effect on you, it is something that I would argue is inevitable. Because you cannot defy the laws of the universe for long. And I find this completely ludicrous. I'm not gonna lie. I think this is a joke. If they say they decided to live in Orania and ostracize other races from coming into Orania to preserve their culture, I call BS on that. Because if that is their logic that they're using, then what is stopping all Africans that reside in South Africa from saying, we want to preserve our culture and respectively ask that all white people move out? That will make headline news. The BBC, the American news, CNN, I would argue they would say, oh, South Africa is racist. They don't like white people, blah, 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 blah. And these people, for some reason, are being allowed to come up with this is racism. Like, honestly, I don't know how anybody would justify this as anything other than that.
I say nay. I come from Natal, and I know Natal very well. And if you go to Keatsdrift in Natal or to Gala Ferry, it's black. There's no whites there. So they make it a big deal, but most popular places in Natal all over, it's black. And it's not about white and black.
I just quickly want to challenge the logic of this person because I think this is comparing oranges to apples. Orania, the difference between Orania and the rest of South Africa is that Orania conspicuously says no other races are allowed. This is a white-only town, which makes it racist, I would argue. That is the textbook definition of racism. And then Natal is mostly, like every other place in South Africa, occupied by black people. Does that make it racist? I would argue not. Because white people, Asian people, all of them, I would argue, are still allowed. There is no sign that says you're not allowed because you're black, you're not allowed because of this, you're not allowed because we want to preserve our culture. That is BS. Comment whatever it is that you think. Am I wrong? Are they right to do this? Or is this simply just utter racism? Anyway, let's get to the stories. Now, if you're still here, as you heard in the intro, transgenderism is officially classified as a mental illness in Peru. And I can hear, almost I would argue, the Americans just dancing in triumph, wishing this was happening in their continent, because the West is in utter ruin. If it is headed there. I think anybody with common sense can see this happening. It's headed there. I would argue they've launched war onto themselves with these agendas of letting drag queens do whatever they want to do, and then sexuality running rampant on the media. And I'm going to play you guys a short clip, and then we'll come back and discuss it.
Since Peru has established a new group of people considered to be mentally ill, transgender intersex, and non-binary people are now officially in that category in that country. The president of Peru signed off on the law last week. According to the state's health ministry, the decision was made to guarantee full coverage of medical attention for mental health for the transgender community. So, Barbie, first of all, your thoughts on this when you hear Peru saying individuals who may be transgender and other categories may have mental illness?
They can't speak for people. You can't say who's mentally ill. It's not just everybody from being straight to first off, let me slow down. Heterosexual people, LGBTQ plus IA community, everybody has a mental illness within those groups of people. So you can't just automatically say because someone's trans or intersex or anything is automatically mentally ill.
Just to challenge what this person is saying, I would argue that, we get the whole sentiment. And for me, disclaimer, I do not want to come off as insincere and lack empathy. But I honestly think that if you were born with a certain body, let's say born a man, and then you somehow 30 years later decide that I want to be a woman, I would argue that should be classified as a form of mental illness. There is clearly something wrong with you as an individual. This, I would argue, people saying that they're not a man, not a woman, and they genuinely, from the bottom of their hearts, believe this. Like, they genuinely believe this. I would argue, I don't see any fault in that being classified as a mental illness, I would argue, because how would you say there is no such thing as a boy or a girl, no such thing as a man or a woman, when you clearly are born into a body? When you look at your genitals, you see, oh, I have a penis, which means I am a male. Now, I do not want to lack empathy, but I honestly just was giving my 2 cents. Anyway, this guy that is set next to this drag queen, or I don't know what this person identifies as, I'm assuming they are part of the LGBTQ, had this to say.
All right, Ron, let's hear from you. Your thoughts on this from the Peruvian government.
I think that it was a great decision. I think that, it kind of speaks for itself. Studies show that people who are transgender, for instance, in Sweden, they did a study, they're 6 times more likely to have to take, anxiety medication. 3 times more likely when they're transgender to have to take antidepressants. So that kind of speaks for itself. When you go against God's order and you begin to try to live a lifestyle that he didn't create you to live.
God didn't make that.
God didn't make what?
We've been here since forever. So you can't go and bring God into this and say what God made when God didn't make that.
Do you believe?
The Bible was a book that was written.
Hold on.
If you want to go there,
let's not even get into that.
You took it there when you said about when you brought up God.
We're talking about whether or not transgenderism is a mental disorder.
Like I stated, everybody from every community has mental illness. It's a lot of transgender people, intersex people. I'm a transgender woman. I'm a transgender woman.
And as you can see, they're starting to debate about religion and everything. They're all over the place. But I would argue that people who are a person who identifies as non-binary and then says, oh, the Bible is not real, the Bible is not real, the Bible is a lie, the Bible is a lie. Like, bro, you don't even know what you are. So why the hell would I listen to you if you say the Bible is a lie, the Bible is a lie? Not to discriminate, but if you are non-binary and you say certain things about certain things, I would argue that it automatically disqualifies you from having an opinion, right? Also, I'm agreeing with what this guy says because the stats are out. All of us know that these people that transition and quote unquote change genders, the suicidal rate amongst people who actually do that is high. which shows you that it probably maybe is mental illness. I know how hard I can imagine, right? I can imagine how hard it is for somebody to look in the mirror and be like, damn it, maybe I have a mental illness. I can imagine. That must be terrifying to even acknowledge. But this is mental illness. I would argue it must be. So I am in full agreement with what Peru did. Like, I can understand the perspective that the president comes from. Now, if you live in a country that endorses for LGBTQ, it's okay, it's fine. So I would argue if the people that live and reside in Peru, if they do not like this bill, I would argue they should just maybe move to the US because it's accepting and everything. Anyway, a man gets misgendered at a bank. Take a listen.
Just because I had a bit of a jarring experience here. I went into the bank. I was trying to change my name on my account, which apparently I can't do because my ex and I still have a joint account, so my ex needs to be present so I can change my name and it reflects on both accounts. Regardless of that, the girl who was doing it had a question, and she calls her coworker over like, well, he's trying to change his name on his account, and I'm like, she kind of like looks at me a little bit and is like, oh, I'm sorry, and just like writes it off. But like, I'm just like, you read both names. Like, she had both my IDs and my legal name change paperwork in front of her. So, you know what my name's going to. Number 2, I look and sound like this. I know I'm 6 feet tall, but girl, come on. I'm wearing a dress. I am wearing a dress. I am wearing makeup. I'm wearing eyeliner and eyeshadow and everything. Like, what do I have to fucking do? What do I have to do to, like, just get gendered correctly once while I'm out? Like, I know it's happened before, but, like, when I'm doing something, like, official like this, it's been so annoying that, like, it's just like, oh, well, he needs this and his and him and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, are you kidding me? You use your eyes. Use your eyes. This isn't rocket science. Like, it's very clear that if you aren't sure, here's a tip. You aren't sure, ask. Ask what my pronouns are.
And this is, I can understand where the person that quote unquote misgendered this person comes from, because like my mind intrinsically would find it utterly difficult to look at a person that my mind clearly comprehends is a male and then call that person a woman. I would argue it's torture. It is literally me looking at the sky, I would argue, and saying, well, the sky clearly is blue, but then I'll be like, just to not offend the sky, then the sky is green. This is the problem. I get, like I said, referencing back to the clip that we watched before this one, Peru, they classified this as a mental illness. I understand where they're coming from, and I hope you do now, because they're trying to mitigate problems like this ones. Like, if you identify as whatever and whatever and whatever, who cares? You know, it's for you after all, right? So why should you try and force it down people's throats? I would argue you will never be happy if you try to force things down people's throats. And this, I would argue, is this person is utterly being a narcissist, because if I go to the bank and then somebody says, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, miss. And then I'm like, no, I'm a man. And then they say, I would go home and look in the mirror and be like, this is me, I would argue, reflecting and having accountability. Unfortunately, these people don't have accountability. If they put on a dress, then they're women. If they put on a little bit of makeup, then they are women. And I would argue, no, that is not what it takes to be a woman. I would argue, like it's common sense, not even argue, you must be born as to be one. At least this is how a majority of people think. Even the ones that go on and turn the camera on and say, oh, trans women can be women, deep down, they know. Because truth, I would argue, God biologically instilled in all of us. Even people who do not know certain things, when they hear the truth, it resonates with something. It resonates with them. So I would argue the banker was doing this, and then they were like, oh, this is clearly a person who is trans, and they want to transition and change their names. And I would argue it slipped out because their mind has already concluded that this is a man who's trying to look like a woman. Anyway, guys, I'm going to be reading some of your comments. As some of you may know, it was recently my birthday on the 5th of July, and I'm going to be reading some of your comments there because, you know, it's refreshing to know that people are sending you messages, and I end up being like this, blushing with the phone. I tremendously appreciate it. So guys, I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but I'll read a few. Miss Graves says, happy birthday. I wish you a very blessed day. I hope you feel as special as you are, and I hope that this year brings to you your goals and that you surpass them in every way. Keep moving forward. Never give up. God will show you the door. You just need to ask him to reveal it to you. Good luck. God bless. Happy birthday. Guys, I just want to quickly give a shout out to Miss Graves because she has been here when this channel had like 92 subscribers, 200 and something subscribers. These people were here, and yes, I do acknowledge some of you guys here because I'm going to read some of the comments. Thank you so much, guys. Like, this tremendously, I would argue, deserves a video on its own of me just saying thank you, because the support that I've been getting is unwavering and it is amazing. Even on days when I feel like giving up, I just go to the comment section and it's like, you know, it's like me recharging my batteries. I don't know how else to explain it. So your comments are highly appreciated, and that goes for all of you guys. This user writes, hey, happy birthday from Quebec, Canada. Not sure if I pronounced that right. And they say, for a 23-year-old, you are very smart. Not everybody asks God for failure as a means to get wisdom. You are brave. You are a brave soul, and keep going because we will keep listening to what you have to say. Bless you, brother, and bless your sister, and bless Africa, where faith and family values still stand strong. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, the last comment that I'll be reading is from this person. They write, I thank JT for pointing me at your channel. Always good to hear the voice of reason and sanity. Happy birthday. And as a friend of mine used to say, your youth belies your wisdom. Keep doing what you do. Thank you so much, guys. And of course, JT is Odin's man. For some of you guys may know him because we more or less are doing the same content. So yeah, guys, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and please do keep commenting. I'll be reading your comments. This will be something that is frequent with every episode that I do. So thank you so much, and this brings this show to an end, and I'll see you guys in another one.